Joining me on the telecast is Peter Watson. He's the former president, CEO of OPIC. He has joined Sasakawa Peace Foundation, USA as Distinguished Senior Fellow, non-resident. Thank you very much, Peter Watson, for joining me on the telecast. And first things first, what do you make of the latest set of attacks and counterattacks coming in from Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and of course Joe Biden, again putting foot in his mouth, talking about that garbage guff? Has that backfired for the Democrats?
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity of visiting with you. In just a moment, I thought Edith did a very good job of review of where we are today. Listen, I think we've seen too much of this rather silly statements from both sides, and I think it's actually not helpful to either side, frankly. But honestly, I think we're focusing now on more of the fundamental differences between these two candidates. And of course, as Edith pointed out, there's been a substantial amount of voting anyway. But I think right now, as people come to vote in these last few days, they're actually not thinking about unfortunate statements from both sides. They're really focused on what their core personal and family interests are.
And what are these core family interests, personal interests for an average American, on the basis of which they go and cast their vote? In fact, a large percentage of them, I think 65 million of them, have already cast their vote.
Indeed. And I think we can safely say, and we've seen this in any number of polls, unsurprisingly, most heads of households are thinking first and foremostly about the security of their families, economic security, personal security as it pertains to crime, an increasing amount. This is where Trump's doing quite well. A huge number of crimes against families and communities by illegal immigrants, rapes of young women, killings. So personal security, economic security, and community and concerns about community. These are the paramount issues that confront American voters.
Right, absolutely. Talking about, a number of Republicans who have shown this aggressive attitude when it comes to the elections. There has been Donald Trump, who has also once again raised the issue, says he is not trustful of the election process. He's made a comment that, if God were to actually count the votes, he would win hands down. Now, does this bring memories of the 2020 elections, where he had again, accused the election commission, the voting process, the election process, that it was allegedly rigged?
Now, I think people have got some level of concern for that, but my judgment will be that at the actual vote will discern and determine whether or not we have reason to be concerned about the past experience. I think law enforcement, voters, we're all going to be, I think, more driven on what the results are coming out of the days of the election, coming days after that, rather than what has happened in the past.
Right, absolutely. And the very recent comment that has been made by Donald Trump, this is with regards to the Bangladeshi Hindus. Now that has touched a chord. Do you think this is resonating with Indian Americans and Hindu Americans particularly? And do you think this statement is particularly targeted in a bid to influence the Indian American voters? And do you think Indian American voters are a substantial chunk that could sway in favor of the Democrats or the Republicans, and then be crucial in deciding who the president becomes?
Demographics are fascinating. And one of the challenges, to your point, actually, that the Kamala Harris has, is that traditional significant bulk or blocks of the Democratic Party have consistently started to move more conservative. And that's why you've actually seen increasing polls of Latinos, Black Americans, certainly males, Asian Americans, tend to be increasingly conservative. And we're seeing that reflected in important ways in these critical battleground states. It's noting, parenthetically, that if you look at Kamala Harris's rankings in the battleground states relative to where Biden was at the same time in 2020 and Mrs. Clinton was at the same time, she is underwater in almost all of the battleground states with the exception of Michigan, excuse me, Wisconsin.
Okay, which is where she's also going to be campaigning later today. Both of them, in fact, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, going to be over there. But let's shift our focus to, you know, from domestic politics to obviously the foreign policy that each of the candidates have envisaged and you know, highlighted as how they're going to be handling the Ukraine war and what is going to be their entire policy with regards to the Middle Eastern crisis, or for that matter, how to tackle China. Now China particularly, Donald Trump has said this categorically, that he is going to be putting huge tariffs, increase the tariffs on imports that are coming in to the country, including the ones from China. So does this really become a key issue, the way a voter is voting in America? Do you think foreign policy is going to work in one candidate's favor over the other?
Well, actually, interesting that you make 2 points on China. One is the economic issues around tariffs. And frankly, that really hasn't been a significant issue in this campaign cycle. But China is more, I think more fundamentally, is a critical issue in this campaign, insofar as it's not been a major issue as either candidates have put it. But to your point, Republicans and certainly Trump supporters have not been at all comfortable about the war in Ukraine, whereby the view from these people is the United States is, under the last administrations, has created an enemy of Russia at a time previously we've had relatively decent relations with Russia, and the existential threat to the West is China. Profoundly China. And the United States has taken their eye off the ball. They really need to be thinking about what does the alliance structure look like in terms of managing the China threat. And so that's why you see a lot of Trump folks who have been concerned by essentially making Russia an enemy at the cost of not including them in a lot to deal with China.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And let's talk about economy, and I think that's on which the entire election revolves. Maybe those 3 points: economy, immigration, and abortion rights. That has been, Kamala Harris has been campaigning the pro-abortion rights, and there are a number of women who are likely to vote for her, more than those who are going to vote for Trump. But do you think economy is Trump's strong point, and Kamala Harris, never having been the president, has not had the opportunity to display her skills and economic policies that could work in favor of the country or not?
Your point about Kamala Harris not having the opportunity to demonstrate her role here, and I feel sort of sorry for her to a certain extent. She was brought in to essentially assume the responsibility of the crashed Biden campaign, and so she was unprepared and certainly didn't have a clear set of messages earlier on, certainly. But, I think it's not so much the campaign messaging either for Harris or Trump. What Kamala's had to deal with is a deep concern by middle America, working families, about increasing cost of groceries, of rent, mortgages, petrol, fuel. This is where there's a significant advantage that Trump's been able to take advantage of deep concern about and this comes back to my earlier point of household concern, personal economic security, jobs, and this is where the immigration point obviously crosses into the economic line. May I just make a point on the abortion issue?
Yes. Yes, yes. Talking about the abortion issue, and of course, do you think, I mean, it is more of a likelihood that the women are going to vote for Harris than they're going to obviously prefer Harris to Trump. But you know, there are certain poll agencies who have once again reflected that Trump has been trying to reach out to women. In fact, his latest statement, it is his duty to protect the women of the country, whether they like it or not, which was again twisted by the Harris campaign, talking about how this is actually undermining the rights of the women in the country.
You know, I've seen some very interesting nuanced statistics. Women are not single issue voters. They do have very real concern about reproductive rights. And they do take those into consideration, but it doesn't automatically have them voting for Kamala Harris. They also are very, and remember, this is demographics. You've got Gen Z, you've got Gen X, you've got the baby boomers, all who've got different reproductive cycles, you know?
Yeah.
And so you can't say that all women are against Trump or all women are pro Kamala Harris. You've got a number of women who are concerned about their personal economic security, family security, crime, and all of these issues, and the general trend to a more conservative perspective demographically in key places in the United States. This is where we're going to see, I think, the major driver in this election.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.